All right, UFC 278 main event. We got Kamaru Usman versus Leon Edwards, the rematch. Right? Part number 2. Doesn't really necessarily feel like part number 2. Part number 1 was a long time ago. It was like 2015. Both of these men were far different fighters at that point. Nevertheless, it is a rematch. Now, Kamaru Usman, man, this guy is something else. Okay, I remember when he comes into the UFC, striking was raw, just kind of ugly in a lot of ways. Dominant wrestler, incredibly physically strong, long arms, relentless, good cardio, knows how to get in there and make stuff happen. Right? Comes in with a few wins, starts to look impressive. Not too long, he starts to be referred to as the boogeyman of the division. Doesn't take too long, and we start hearing people talk about how Kamaru Usman is an avoided man, maybe even the most avoided man at 170 pounds. But he just does exactly what he's supposed to do, goes out there and continually wins. And while we see him winning, we see him progressing in his striking. We see the striking getting better and better. Right? He's over there, he's working with Henry Hooft. Right? Former professional kickboxer. He's worked with a massive amount of people that we see in the UFC. We've always seen their striking get better once they go and work with him. It's exactly what we saw from Usman. He was going out there, he was continually getting better and better. Right? So it created this weird situation. If you were one of the people in 170 pounds, right, you're one of the guys competing in this division, you start to think, this dude's young, this dude's hungry, he's aggressive, he's strong, blah, 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 incredible wrestling. I don't really want to fight him. Classic situation of a high risk, low reward. Usman wasn't selling any tickets at the time. He wasn't a pay-per-view star. He's one of those guys that you look and be like, if he holds a fight in his own backyard, is he going to sell it out? I don't know. Right? So we got a high risk, low reward situation. High risk because the dude's a beast. There's a lot of guys out there that he would just go out and absolutely dominate with his wrestling. Wouldn't even have to have good striking. Wouldn't have to have good kicks. Just go out there and dominate with your wrestling. 3 rounds. 1, 2, 3, done. Right? Win it 30-27. And a lot of people know that. And a lot of people know that if they get dominated like that, what's it going to do for their next fight? What's it going to do for the eyes of the fans? What's it going to do for a title shot? So people are avoiding him. But it creates this weird scenario, right? Because here's the dichotomy to that. Here's the other side. If everything you said is true and his striking is getting better, he's going to be even better eventually when you face him. He's not going to go anywhere. Who's going to knock him off? Who's going to knock him, take the hype train and derail it? Who's going to knock him out of the way? Who's going to take this dude out before you have to see him? If you think you're one of the top guys at 170, you got your eyes on the belt, you have to figure that eventually there's going to be a collision course between you and Usman. And if you catch him 2 years from now or 3 years from now, he's going to be a much better fighter. So you just fight him now, try and get it out the way and try and get a win. Right? For you boxing fans out there, think about what Floyd Mayweather did with Canelo. Floyd Mayweather ran and jumped at the opportunity to fight Canelo when he did. In my opinion, for 2 reasons. Number 1, he knew Canelo was going to get better. And kind of to build on that a little bit, not just better, I think that he knew Canelo was going to be special. I think that he knew Canelo was going to be one of these people that he's talked about for years to come, dominates. We refer to it as the Canelo era. Cash cow of the sport. I think Floyd saw all that. And he thought, I need to get that dude on my resume. I need to get a win against Canelo on my resume, because then when people talk about how great Canelo is, they'll have to talk about how he lost to Floyd Mayweather. So he ran out there, caught him young. I'm sure he offered him a big payday. He was able to get Canelo on the resume. Right? So that's the type of thing that I'm talking about. Catching a guy before he ends up getting better. Now, a lot of our people did that with Usman. He grinded it out and eventually made his way to the belt. Captures it up from Woodley. Held it ever since. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. I think Usman is one of those guys that the belt made him better. When he went in there and he won the belt, in his mind, he elevated himself. He's like, I'm a champion now. I'm the man. I've got the gold. Everybody's looking at me. Instantly, his game stepped up 20%. Instantly, he became that much more difficult to deal with. All right, this fight on Saturday, main event, UFC 278. He's going for his 6th title defense. Got 2 wins over Colby Covington, 2 wins over Jorge Masvidal, and a win over Gilbert Burns. Right, that's the 5 defenses. Very impressive, particularly when you think about what he did on his way to get the belt. Usman's a beast, man. Usman is a beast. I think he's just getting better. I love the striking. Not even his bread and butter, but dude, it's getting so good. Love that jab. He sticks it out there. It's like a piston, just firing. Dude, it's like somebody just jabbing you in the face with a telephone pole. Like, that's what it looks like when you're watching it on TV. And then that right hand, I mean, come on. We saw what he did to Masvidal. And everybody looks at that. The majority of people look at that and they think, oh, he came in there with the right hand and he caught him. Dude's got one punch knockout power. It was smooth. It was fast. Look how straight it was. All of those are true statements. But I would make the argument that you're missing the most important point. Okay? There's a lot of people who can throw a punch like that in the gym. Guys you've never heard of, guys you never will hear of, guys who are nobodies, guys who can't go in and win fights, particularly against the best in the world. But if you see them in the gym and you see them working the heavy bag, man, they look like assassins. Right? What's the difference? The difference is they can't land it on an opponent. They can't land it against the guy who's trying to stop you from landing it. Usman could. So what's the point of that punch that a lot of people are missing? It's what he set it up. He hid that. He set that trap. He feinted with that jab, only kind of put it out there halfway. Masvidal was looking to catch him with his check left hook, and Usman just shot that right hand straight down the pipe and damn near decapitated him. Beautiful knockout. And it shows how much his striking has progressed, how much it's elevated. It shows how his ring IQ is picking up. The man's continually getting better. You combine that with the pressure. You combine that with his work in the clinch, the way he's got that upper body, he gets that underhook and he kind of pops his hips back out and he steps his hip backs because he's got those long arms and he's still able there to work and get that good body work done. And that's all super impressive. That's why he's so difficult for anybody to deal with. Now look, everybody eventually loses. Everybody eventually gets knocked off the throne. Vast majority of the time, we never see it coming. Do we see it coming with Anderson Silva or Jose Aldo or Conor McGregor or Max Holloway or Ronda Rousey or Amanda Nunes or any of the other? We could list all kinds of people. What about Mike Tyson? We see that loss coming? Who out there predicted Buster Douglas was going to knock him out that night? Right? It's just typically not what happens, but eventually it does, right? And then hindsight's 2020, we can always look back and say, of course I saw this one coming. Of course I saw Usman getting too big. Of course I saw him starting to live in the limelight of being a champion. Man showing up with blazers with no shirt on underneath all the time. It was funny when Leon Edwards called him out on that. But nevertheless, it's a good point. Right? And the point is, if you don't stay incredibly focused and locked in, you're not going to be able to beat the best fighters in the world. Dude, the difference between being the absolute best and being number 5 is not that big of a difference at all. It's literally the difference of how locked in you are during camp, how focused you are. Because when you're the champ, everybody's showing up with their A game. And the man who's showing up with his A game at UFC 278 is Leon Edwards. And he's no joke. Look, it's easy to look back at that end of that 5th round with Nate Diaz, when Nate Diaz caught him with that little left hand, put him on chicken legs and think, oh, Leon Edwards, if Nate Diaz can catch him with a punch, a guy who's ultimately really truly a 155-pounder, but if Nate Diaz can catch him with a punch and hurt him, Nate Diaz, who doesn't have power, imagine what Usman's going to do. It's easy to say that. But what about the first 4.5 rounds? What about everything Leon Edwards did up to that fight? The man's he is a technician. He is good, man. His hands are smooth. Man, they're crisp. Very good with the combinations. Fires that left hand off extremely well. I love the kick up the middle that he uses, that he opens up a lot of fights with, whether it was the first fight with Usman or the fight against Dos Anjos. Very skilled and very educated in the grappling department, right? Knows how to frame people up with his elbows, knows how to land quick, sharp elbows on the inside, knows how to spin guys around. Leon Edwards is no joke, right? Now, let's just say, for example, that what we were talking about here was a kickboxing match between Edwards and Usman. Who do you think would win? I'd go with Leon Edwards. This was just a straight 5 rounds, 5-minute rounds, kickboxing match. K1 rules. Gonna go with Leon Edwards. Not gonna be a blowout, but I think he's gonna be able to come up with the victory. If this was a wrestling match, going with Usman all day, not even close. Right? Marty from Nebraska, he's going to dominate. But this is an MMA match where we mix it all together. You know, Usman, He's taken a lot of guys down, and he's done a lot of damage with the ground and pound. And if he gets Leon Edwards down here, puts him on his back, he's going to be able to do some damage. Leon Edwards has like a purple belt in jiu-jitsu or something. I don't think he's a threat. We saw him in the first fight. He had like one possible, maybe, kind of submission threat in the first round. Usman was never really in any trouble. We've seen Usman go away from his wrestling in recent times, though. And a lot of these recent fights, he didn't use it as quite as much as he did coming up. But that's understandable, right? He's got more tools in his tool belt now. He wants to show everybody how dominant his hands are. He wants to show them how beast he is. You know, one of the things that I love is when he comes out and he says, I'm mentally stronger than everybody. Nobody is mentally stronger than me. That's why I am the champion of the division. And I think when it's all said and done, UFC 278, when the curtains close, Usman is still going to be the champion. Now, the odds on this one, he's like minus 400, I think, or something crazy like that. I think that's a little bit much. Right? He's been getting a lot of publicity lately between him, Francis Ngannou, and Israel Adesanya, saying the 3 champions from Africa and all that stuff. He's rolling around with no shirt on all the time. You see him a lot. All of that on top of the incredibly impressive victories he has. I always tell people, the betting line that Vegas sets is not necessarily representative of the true skills of the teams or the athletes or whoever's competing. That's about public perception. The line is about public perception. That's how come when people come in and bet too much money on one side, the line will move because they're attempting to move things to get more money on the other side. It's all about public perception. It's about how people are going to bet. So I don't think Usman should be that big of a favorite, but I do expect him to come out with the victory. I do expect Leon Edwards to land some good, hard, crisp shots in there. Look, Usman gets caught all the time. All the time we see him get caught in fights. We see him get rocked in fights. It's not going to be any secret to see Leon Edwards go in there and catch Usman with a nasty right hook and a straight left hand. Wouldn't be surprised to see him get staggered. Certainly wouldn't be surprised to see him persevere and come out with the victory. The man's got a chin. So let me know what you guys think. Am I underestimating what Leon Edwards brings to the table? Dude is incredibly quiet. He's been waiting for a long time to get his shot. Is he now going to make the most of it and come home with the belt? Or is this going to be the 6th defense in a row for Usman? Let me know what you guys think.